This is the Future Talk, the Mangrove Opportunity, Scaling Nature-Based Solutions. Please welcome to the stage Ariane Steins-Meier from the Ocean Risk and Resilience Action Alliance.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. The Future Talks, I think it's a topic which deserves to look out into the future. My name is Ariane Steins-Meier, and I'm really delighted to moderate the session, The Mangrove Opportunity, Scaling Nature-Based Solutions. So mangroves are one of the most powerful nature-based solutions we have for responding to climate change and biodiversity loss. They protect coastlines, reduce disaster risk, store carbon, support biodiversity, and sustain livelihoods. And we will hear about this more in the session. The reason why we have this panel discussion today is because we are at an important moment. The science is clear around the value for mangroves. Pilots have shown that nature-based solutions work. Larger scale projects are now really emerging, and new financial mechanisms are coming to connect resilience and investment. So really, it's not about why mangroves matter. It's more the question, how do we scale now what works? And this is what we want to focus on this afternoon. So how do you recognize, therefore, value in finance, that resilience matter, and that mangroves sort of come to the forefront into climate and economic strategies and not are an afterthought? So I'm delighted to welcome our four distinguished panelists, each of them bringing a different but highly complementary perspective to the discussion. So please first welcome Dr. Grethel Aguilar, Director General of IUCN, to the stage. The world's largest environmental membership union, bringing together government, civil society, and experts to advance nature conservation and sustainable development. Welcome. Next to the stage, Mayor Lemuel from the Philippines. His constituency is a member of the Coastal 500 network, representing a coastal community where mangroves are not an environmental concept, but really part of everyday resilience and livelihoods. Welcome. State Secretary Jochen Flasbarth, please also come to the stage from the Environmental Ministry. You have been really instrumental in advancing Germany's international commitments to mangrove conservation and climate resilience. Thank you. And last but not least, we have the insurance perspective, Dr. Alexander Schmidt, Chief Underwriting Officer at Zurich Insurance, bringing together insurance perspective and the growing recognition that healthy ecosystems are critical for assessing, managing climate risk. So thank you all for being here. So we have global partnership, local leadership, government, and finance and insurance. And that is really the different perspective and partnerships we need when we think about scale. But let me start with you, Dr. Aguilar. IUCN Global's mangrove assessment was really a landmark moment. It showed both the value of mangroves and the risk they're facing. And so while sort of about half of the world mangroves ecosystems are at risk currently to collapse in 2050, also lately, I think about a month ago in the Science publication, we saw actually mangrove loss is slowing down and regeneration is increasing. So we have hope that mangroves can recover when pressure reduces, but we really would love to see your perspective on both the moment of urgency, but also where there are opportunities. And given that your membership base really brings together governance, scientists, civil society, and communities, can you tell us a little bit more what makes mangrove such a compelling nature-based solution when speaking to finance ministers, insurance, and development banks?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation, and thank you for all of you for being here this afternoon. I believe that you are here because you believe in mangroves and how important those mangroves are. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So, if I have to explain it in a few seconds, I will say that this is perhaps the most rentable business that it is. It is investable. It is something that perhaps when we walk in front of them, we don't clearly see the value, but they store carbon. They are the source of food for many communities because the role they play in the fisheries industry. They are the source of ecotourism, and they bring life. So not to rescue them is a big mistake. We have 14 million hectares of mangroves today intact. Of course, we have lost a lot, as you just mentioned, but half of those 14 million hectares are at risk. And I'm saying this not just as a line, but in IUCN, we have the IUCN Red List of mangroves. So scientifically, we follow where these mangroves are, and we know the state of the mangroves. So to have half of the mangroves at risk, knowing the function that they play on our lives, is a big mistake. And unfortunately, we humans, because it's we are the ones who are putting those wetlands at risk. There is nothing like we human beings. We are capable of the best, because we're wonderful. We are capable of the best, but we are also capable of taking very, very bad decisions. And I think that this is one of the most important cases that we have, why we cannot lose those 14 million hectares of mangroves, because we depend as humans being on them for many, many reasons that I'm sure here the panelists are going also to explain, like water quality, like they protect us in terms of storms. They are the link with the ocean, between the land and the ocean. They are the mangroves. So what can we do? I think that in IUCN, we are very proud that we are a union. We work with the local communities on the ground. We bring the governments on board, subnational governments, state governments, and we create together solutions. I will say bridges, because it needs all hands on deck. To protect mangroves, you need all hands on deck. And you also need the private sector. I mean, it's a combination, private sector, government, local governments, and communities, because they are the ones who are the first line of defense as we should see this. They are the ones who live close to the mangroves and experience the good and the bads of this situation. So as IUCN, we build bridges. We bring all the sectors to one table, and we create opportunities. Because, I have been in other sessions here, and there is one simple question. So, but at the end, why is it that nature is in such state, and why is it that is it possible to reverse this? It is possible to reverse the situation in which we are. I think that in IUCN we have proved one and one again that it is possible all around the world to reverse the situation. So just keep in mind that mangroves are linked to our own survival, first. Second, it is possible to save half of the 14 million that we have to protect. I mean, those that are at risk, we can save them. What do we need? We need alliances. We need money. I'm not going to say that we don't need money. And we need the local communities, indigenous peoples, civil society who live on the places, on board and leading. This is what we need. It's simple. And we need projects that are investable and that the private sector come on board. Not anymore. It's impossible to continue with just one way of financing the protection of mangroves. This is not possible. It's not possible just to receive donations. We have to move, and we have to find good businesses that can protect nature. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you for not only providing the science, but building the partnership, as you said, so that we can scale. And you already talked a little bit about what is happening in the coastal community. But Mayor Noor, I would really like you to take us now to the forefront of coastal resilience and the mangroves. I think your constituency has around 120 hectares of mangrove ecosystems. It's part of your everyday life. So really bring us to that community. Tell us a little bit more why it matters, but also what local governments need. I know that I mentioned already the Coastal 500 network, so I think you can tell us a little bit more also, who are your allies on the local community level? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Before Typhoon Haiyan, maybe everybody can recall here, in 2023, mangrove is nothing to us. In fact, it was a source not on livelihood, but it's a source of charcoal to the Filipino people. And after Typhoon Haiyan, Tacloban City, the capital in Eastern Visayas, was devastated. In fact, there was a confusing figure, either 15,000 died for the typhoon or either 5,000 died in the official figure of the government. So it was one of the, maybe today, most devastated typhoon maybe in Earth, because a lot of people dying. Even I observed people really crying every day. That's like we are zombie at the time. So now there's a community in a place called San Jose that the waves at the time was 9 to 11 meters in height. So nobody believed in the storm surge because we do not know the word storm surge. If the authorities told us it's a tsunami, maybe people in our community will evacuate to the high area. But storm surge is the first thing that we heard at the time. So the people stayed in the area, especially the senior citizen, because they told, I've been here for 70 years, nobody happened to me, and then now, what's that? That is storm surge. So it happened, my friend. But there's a community, one barangay, due to mangroves plantation, wow, people were saved. People were saved. While the other barangay, hundreds of people were died. So, people now starting to plant mangroves. And today, this is now the way of life of our community. Now, I am a mayor in a certain municipality in Silago. I admired it. I was then a private citizen at the time during 2013. And I make it to it that my agenda is to protect the environment. We are the biggest in terms of land area and ocean area. For the information of everyone, our municipality was located 100 kilometers away from Tacloban and 1,000 kilometers away from Tacloban. And it is very historic because that's the biggest naval battle on earth happened during Second World War. So in Pacific Ocean. So today we planted and people now realize how beautiful it was. My municipality, the people in our country called it, we are the manufacturer of typhoons. Because we have typhoons 19 to 25 times a year. From June to December. But today, this year alone, we were surprised. Because even January, we had a typhoon. My God, climate change is happening in our community. Everything in our municipality, tragedy, floods, typhoon, big waves, at the same time earthquake. Everything. We are, maybe my municipality is very unfortunate enough. That's why we live with a disaster. We cannot escape the disaster, but we have to live it. So first, the thing that we're going to do, because every September to December, while surfers were reducing because of the big waves, people are worrying. So now, especially the fishermen, we gathered the community to plant mangroves. And thankfully, I would like to extend to the German people because GIZ is one of the reason, I pronounce it rightly, who gave finances to our municipality. Thank you for that. From the bottom of our heart, thank you for your finances. So, and we experience that because of that, mangroves really protect our community. Not only in the big waves, but even in the flooding. So there was a story that there was a flash floods in our municipality, and the children the waters were coming from the mountain because of the mangrove. They were saved. Imagine, from the mountain to the ocean, and from the ocean to the mountain, the waves. So this is very way of life to us. So I told myself, when I became a mayor, we have to make a legislation that every October, in the month of October, we have to plant all the students, all the community leaders, all the people, thousands of it, because my people, my constituents are 20,000 more or less, and we have 5,000 households. So that's a way of life. We plant it. But to tell you frankly, sometimes volunteering, because we called it volunteering. Bayanihan in our Filipino dialect is so difficult if we don't have a finances. So difficult because if they will work without any pay, so sometimes they will only volunteer for a day. So they will work for another day, they will find an escape for that. But again, in a way of life for the our municipality particularly, it's not only helping with the weeds, but we notice now a lot of fish, crabs, shrimp, and other marine product to the mangroves area. Before, we can hardly find a good fish. We can hardly find a good fish. But today, because I have 6 sanctuary, different site sanctuaries, managed by the village people. Because again, I always protect the community. Even the surfing itself, I will not advertise it because European wanted and loved to surf. And sometimes I will not allow them because I want to protect the community. So today, I am very grateful that mangroves not only protect to the waves and flooding, but it gives resources to our community. I am a living witness that mangrove does not help us being in we called it typhoon-prone area, but it really lives for our life by helping the fishermen and the people of our community.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for taking us through this journey. Also, how sort of your community has felt the really context of how mangroves can save you. And I think the concept of building back better after such a disaster is really what you've shown. So State Secretary Flasbarth, Germany has been one of the important supporters of nature-based solutions from the beginning, both internationally at the conventions, but also really through international finance, the climate initiatives, the Blue Action Fund, and other calls for proposals. So what really, it really has helped to put sort of mangroves and nature-based solutions on the agenda towards piloting. So based on your experience, what is needed to now go from a project-by-project approach to really building national resilience and reliable finance, with also the community still being sort of in the lead?
Thanks a lot, and great being here. And the relevance of nature and biodiversity for the economy is now getting more and more into the focus, but it's not a long time since it is better understood. About 15 years ago, we launched the study, the ecosystem services, the economics of ecosystem services and biodiversity, TEEP, launched at that time by the Indian economist Pavan Sukhdev. But this was on the aggregated level. We understood, wow, nature is not only nice to have, it's also relevant for our economies. And from there on, I think the understanding increased. So we are now talking about nature-based solutions or ecosystem services. And of course, yes, all the different biomes and ecosystems, they are providing ecosystem services. But if there is one champion on ecosystem services, then it is obviously mangroves. I would say you can hardly imagine another ecosystem service, another ecosystem providing so immensely services for people. And what Lemuel was speaking about at the very beginning with the typhoon, and we saw the tsunamis and all this around, with devastating results and impacts on people. It's the first ecosystem service is falling into your business. It's insurances. It's insurance against disasters. It's disaster prevention. And at the same time, it's also adaptation to climate change, what you were eloquently talking about, Lemuel, from your village. Or your local community. And there are even more ecosystem services. Adaptation, I mentioned, it's climate mitigation, because the storage capacity of mangroves is immense. And just to share this nice story with you, we had just had our Oceans Conference in Mombasa, hosted by Kenya. And I see some in the room who attended the meeting. I see Markus Knigge from the Blue Action Fund, I will come to in a second. And so I took the luxury before I went to the conference to visit the Gazi Bay Mangrove Restoration Project. It's financed by our German International Climate Initiative. And it's exactly addressing those services you mentioned. And I was so impressed how deeply the local community involved. And by the way, led by young women. And talking to the fishermen, how they to do fishing in a sustainable way was brilliant to see. And so you have already services at hand, and then you can talk more on this, not speaking about biodiversity. But what I saw there is that they're working also to create blue carbon credits, and for the voluntary market, which organized already $20,000 for the local community in, I think, a 2 or 3 years period, which is something substantial for this local community. So a lot of reasons why to promote not only mangrove protection, but also restoration, and to be very clear, not in a sense to create wilderness. It might happen every now and then, but the purpose is to create resilient ecosystems providing services for the people. That is why Germany is involved. We saw I think it was in Sharm el-Sheikh when the mangrove breakthrough was organized. We are part of the mangrove breakthrough as a country, although we are not hosting mangroves. Our coastal ecosystems are seagrass beds and salt marshes, but with a similar type of ecosystem services. We want to continue providing financing not only through the IKI, but also our sister ministries, BMZ, Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, doing a lot of mangrove projects around the world. The Blue Action Fund just came out, Markus, with a call addressing NGOs, also in the area of I think it's also in Southeast Asia, if I understand it right, you are nodding. Also to combine NGO involvement, mangrove protection, mangrove restoration with blue carbon credits. And just to finish on that one is I started my journey here at the HSC this year with a tour through the harbor with the Team Malaysia, and very happy that Team Malaysia is also promoting a project in the Philippines.
Yeah, thank you. So the private sector was already named by most of our panelists. So turning to you, Dr. Schmidt, now. Zurich Insurance has been active in the conversation of how mangroves can really protect homes, livelihood, coastal assets. So how they are really providing the ecosystem services around risk reduction, which we heard about a little bit. So tell us a little bit more about the work the insurance is currently doing and how risk analytics can help make the protection of mangroves more visible in underwriting premiums in the resilience finance?
Yes, very happy to. And you mentioned that for a long time we overlooked the value that nature-based solutions can bring. We believed in big concrete walls, seawalls, and these kind of things. But I think this discussion has shifted and has turned. And there's ample evidence out there. The science is very clear about the protection value to coastal areas that especially mangroves, but also other plants, bring. And acknowledging these nature-based solutions in resilience, but also in the community building is part of what we want to support as Zurich. So you mentioned that Team Malaysia, together with Mama Earth Foundation, built a mangrove park in the Philippines. And if you look at that, it not only creates a natural habitat, it not only helps to mitigate the effects of climate change, which we of course also observe as an insurance company quite vividly, but it creates really a protection for the coastal areas. And acknowledging this, not only then in insurance premiums, I think that's, to be honest, a second or third order question, but really in the protection value that these solutions bring to these communities, I think that's the important factor.
Yeah, so we've heard that pilots work. We have the proof of concept. I think it's great that the insurance companies are now thinking about how they can put that into their core business as well. Herr Flasbarth, you already mentioned the mangrove breakthrough, and we have a financial target. So I want to turn to sort of finance in the next round of questions. So the mangrove breakthrough aims to mobilize $4 billion by 2030 to protect 15 million hectares of mangroves. We have seen already around 715 million moving towards that, but it's not enough to scale. So really, when we think about finance and some of the new partnerships we need to create, Grethel, what kind of initiatives IUCN together with WWF and others have worked around Save Our Mangroves Now for a decade now, and you have really brought together the different partnerships both on the local level and the national level, as you already mentioned. So where do you see at the moment the greatest opportunity to move from ambition to delivery, and how finance can follow that opportunity?
Thank you very much for the question. Since we in IUCN are about data and science, let me just share with you some of the numbers that our IUCN Mangroves Specialist Group is been telling the world. So they said that by 2050, about 5% more mangroves will be lost and 16% more will be submerged. What it means in financial terms, so that we all get it. So it means that we are at risk of losing 1.8 million tons of carbon stored, currently valued at least 13 billion at market price, voluntary carbon markets, and representing a cost of society equal to 336 billion based on the social cost of carbon. I mean, I have many numbers here, but the other very impressive number is that 17 million days of fishing efforts per year will be lost, and so on. I mean, we can put numbers. This is not something that we cannot touch, that we cannot put numbers. We can put numbers, and perhaps these numbers are on the lower side. I think that you will agree with me that some of the numbers might be at the lower part of the equation, because there is so much that we will be losing. So what can we do? I think that Mr. Flasbarth said very clearly, and it is good that there are new and innovative ideas on the table. For example, in IUCN, together with Luxembourg, we are working on what we call the Blue Natural Capital Financing Facility. And there are now some facilities. This is specific for the private sector because it works on putting together feasibility studies, financial structuring, and risk reduction to help mangrove projects reach investment readiness. So we want to package some of the projects that come from communities, from the local level, and get those projects ready for investment. So that is a good business for the private sector, but it's also a good business for communities. And I think that here the insurance companies play a huge role in making sure that there are insurance for the ones investing, but also for the community. Because the impact of climate change is so huge that these mangroves that I'm saying that will be submerged, 16% of them, because of climate change. I mean, if we don't work together as a society, as humanity, they will be submerged. And then, in terms of insuring, I think that it will be good to put the eye on the insurance equation in both the investors and the ones who are doing the job. So that's one idea. Then, of course, there is the mangroves breakthrough that it was mentioned, but there are also other initiatives like Save the Mangroves Now, that is composed by many, many organizations around the world, or the Global Mangrove Alliance, which has currently more than 100 members and 14 national chapters, and is growing. So there is hope. There is hope. And there are people who are working very tirelessly all around the world to protect nature because they see the value in front of them. And not just the economic value, because there are other values. There is the spiritual value. There is the value for the indigenous communities. There is the value for the ones who have been living together with mangroves for centuries. So it's a combination of the cultural value, the economic value, and the value for all of us as a society. So there are different efforts. You, depending on where you sit, you might want to pick the one that fits you the best, but please pick one. Pick one. Don't just stay here and hear these talks, because we are an emergency, and this is not about mangroves isolated. We have to talk about the coastal systems. The coastal systems. This is, as indigenous people will say, we cannot separate, the different parts of the ecosystem. So this is about land. This is about the ocean. This is about what is in the middle, which are the mangroves. So I'm totally convinced that if we work together, we will save those 14 million hectares of mangroves. So please join one of these initiatives. There are more. And feel comfortable, because you have a place in any of these houses.
Yeah, thank you. And I think these new catalytic finance instruments you have mentioned already, and I think State Secretary Flasbarth, you mentioned carbon markets already as well. Where do you see public funding being most catalytic nowadays when it comes to accelerating implementation, but also really making sure that we have high integrity and high quality sort of projects? Mm-hmm.
Thanks. I can be brief. Number one is, I think many of the mangrove projects have a business case in itself. Mm-hmm. So there are more challenges on climate and biodiversity in the world, which give me a bigger headache when it comes to financing. Here we really are close to get it done. And just to share an example, when we collaborated with Fiji, when we did their climate conference in Bonn, I was there, and what they did with our support, they made an economic evaluation about the coastal fisheries, the local coastal fishery. Some of them, not all of them, also involving mangroves. And what they found out is this income did not go into the national income accounting in Fiji. But they found out that the value is by far higher than the concessions they are handing out to international fishery companies. So what the Prime Minister at that time, Frank Bainimarama, did, he said, we stop the licensing for the international fishing in our areas, and we hand it over to our local fisheries. And I think this already indicates that in many cases there is economic sense in itself. Mm-hmm. So, but of course, in many areas, it needs a better understanding of the microeconomics. That is, Johannes, why we are talking about how to better understand the microeconomics of biodiversity, how to include it in public funding, but also in private companies funding. I'm not talking about this business sides to step away from public funding. Germany is committed. We will continue to do so. Carbon markets are rising, but there are many opportunities, and I think this one is that we might even get to lower costs than we expected when we started.
Yeah. And then from an insurance perspective, and there are new insurance products out there, parametrics insurance, for example, taking that risk into account and helping communities to rebuild after a disaster. But from your perspective, Dr. Schmidt, what would help sort of the insurance sector to move quicker from your experience?
Yeah. So first of all, we know it's smarter to invest in preventive measures than in disaster recovery, right? Like not only the business case, as you mentioned, is simple, right? Like and on top, and first and foremost, of course, you have the livelihoods lost and the life lost. So at the same time, the business case is complex because the avoided damage is not something you see. You don't have it in your hand, right? Like even as a mayor, and so this is why it's so great that you lead this effort, because many don't have the foresight to see the economic benefit because it's an avoided disaster. And I think this is where insurance can help, making this visible because we know how to quantify risk. And sometimes you can make this visible also in like reduced insurance premium. But as said, like insurance penetration is sometimes, when we talk about certain countries in the mangrove belt, quite low. So this is more complex. One thing that is important, you mentioned public funding. For us as private sector, public funding also serves an important function. It basically assures that a project is well audited, well done, well conducted. Before we supported Team Malizia and Mama Earth Foundation with the Mangrove Park, we had another project which we needed to stop because like accountability was not clear, etc. And for us, and as a private sector, it's always very important that this is a really sustainable project led by a local community leader or led by local communities. So you invest sustainability. Otherwise, you have all discussions around greenwashing on all these kinds, which and rightly so. So this is why this sometimes is also for us a very important function of like almost an auditing function.
Mm-hmm. So coming back to the local level, we talked about the innovative financial architecture a little bit, but how do you access that actually? What is your experience in terms of getting finance? You mentioned already, Mayor, that GIZ is supporting now the replanting, but what do you need? Yeah, what do you need now to kind of really scale?
Today, to be honest, it's very challenging now to maintain mangroves because of the pattern of the climate change. Sometimes, as I said before, when 15 years ago, the typhoon occurs from September to December in Pacific Ocean in our place. But 2022, it occurs June. So the government issued that no mayors will travel outside the country on June. But today, this year, January, there's already a typhoon. So that's why I said, if this cannot be prevented, maybe all the mangroves here will be damaged. Because first, why? Because when we planted, it must not be disturbed by the ocean based on our understanding. And fishermen's before, from January to June, they are very happy because no disturbance of the weather. And at the same time, they can fish. They have shell fish. But today, they fish during any other day, which there is a good climate or good weather. And secondly, because of the very expensive way of life in the Philippines right now, especially in what we observe in the Hormuz, Iran, US war, our diesel is $2 per liter. So people can hardly volunteer in planting what we call volunteering the planting of mangroves. So maybe, in my opinion, the local government at the same time, the national government particularly, they are not fond of funding the mangrove plantation. They always give a funds to the forest. So plant these natural trees, the Nara, the acacia, but not in the mangroves. I really do not know, sorry to that, if there is a government official here, national official in the Philippines. So if the ambassador is here, they are not funding the mangroves industry. And we are very thankful that European community are helping with us, and the US, even the Canadian. But again, of course, in a little way today, to be honest, there's no NGO who help us in planting the mangrove industry. That's why it's been 2 to 3 years already that we stop, planting. Every October we have 1 day planting, but after that, no more. Because as I said, we cannot expect the people to help one another if their stomach is also empty. So that's why I'm urging here in the community, if not only in my community, but to the world, that we have to help the people, especially in the third world country, to plant mangroves and fund for it.
I think it shows that really the partnership is key, and also that local governments need to collaborate, or national governments need to collaborate with local leaders. We're coming to an end of this session, but before we do, I really want to take this conversation into sort of driving action. So I would like to give each of you 30 seconds. I think you already said, join the initiative. So what is the one action you're urging the audience to take forward? You already said, joining these initiatives. Maybe you have something else. And then we just go around.
Yes, thank you. I will urge you to see the mangroves as part of a seascape. I think that it's very important to conserve watersheds upstream and go to offshore ecosystems that are the mangroves. This is an entire ecosystem. So when you start, by protecting water upstream and having clean water that goes down the mangroves, you're already protecting. So I joined the mayor in the fact that we need to invest in mangroves at the coastal level, but the whole system needs to be connected. And that is why we need to join the efforts that where we protect forests, water, and mangroves. This cannot be separated anymore. It cannot, because we are just taking parts of the puzzle. And if we just take parts, the whole ecosystem will not rehabilitate. So we need to protect that. Let's protect the 14 million hectares that we still have. Let's make sure that we don't lose 1 hectare.
Thank you.
And I call all of you on that. Thank you.
Thank you for that call to action. State Secretary Flasbarth.
It's me already. Okay. So I can be very brief. You were not so positive about the forest, but restoration of degraded forest landscapes is something meaningful, and we are doing it. And I just spoke with Grethel that we want to launch a Bond Challenge 2.0. It is addressing restoring forest landscapes, but we did some brainstorming here, because at the HSC you should do some brainstorming, and we want to include mangroves into the Bond Challenge, so that we cover two.
Thank you. Mayor, yes?
If we love the environment, you love the mangrove, and support the mangrove, and support the countries which need funding to plant mangrove, so that we can live better in this world. Thank you.
Thank you. And what is your call to action from the insurance perspective?
Let us build alliances, and let us bring together the technical capabilities of the private sector and the project power of the NGOs and the governing power of local agencies, local governance, and then the local ownership, because only this will create sustainable solutions.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you for being part of this panel. I hope everyone leaves now with action in mind. I think we heard if you're a funder or investor, deploy capital where resilience is built. If you're an insurer, make ecosystem protect valuable and risk models. And if you're a government, mainstream mangroves into resilience planning. But most of all, you have said it, build partnerships, scale up what works. I think the biggest risk is really inaction. So with that, thank you so much to everyone in the room as well. Enjoy the rest of the conference.